Here at the Meltdown, we've been with you officially for 6 months now here on the channel, and between the three of us, we have seen almost every single theatrical film release of the year. So we have plenty to discuss when it comes to both the best and the worst that 2024 has had to offer in what we're calling our Meltdown 2024 movie midterm. What has impressed and what has depressed? You'll get it all right now.
Two big balls in a tiny studio, teaching you and me about everything they know to make sound. A meltdown, it's the meltdown, time for the meltdown, coming for the meltdown, let's start the show.
Welcome in, all of you lovely Meltdonians, to this Friday edition of The Meltdown. We are mixing it up just a little bit as we have our Meltdown 2024 movie midterm. Is the first one of these, hopefully not the last, as we are set to get into all of the things we have loved and all of the things we have very much disliked about this film year. I am your Meltdown host, Tim Melton. We appreciate all of you being here with us, as my co-host is Mr. John Lunsford.
Me?
John, how would you describe the 2024 movie year to this point, 6 months in, of our tenure with the Meltdown following all of this, 7 months into the actual film year itself?
I
guess 8 months, technically. Okay.
I mean, honestly, that's the best description for it.
We're coming off of a writer's strike. We're coming off of the pandemic. We're coming off of all these things that have sort of slowed down progress a little bit in the film industry for sure. And we're seeing some of the ramifications of that for this year, and we're definitely seeing that here towards the end of August. Our producer, that is Tyler Lionel Johns. Tyler, how are you holding up here on this Friday? It's been a great week.
It has been. It's been a solid week. We've seen a lot of movies this year. I've seen a lot of movies just this week. Glad to talk. We finally get a chance to talk about all of them.
The only reason Tyler's able to be here for us today is because he's not currently at the movies. He's been at the movies a lot throughout the course of this year, and we're going to get his full rundown of where things are. I've divided this up into 11 different categories of discussion. They're not your typical Oscars categories. They are a little bit more of just how you feel about the year to this point, and we will get to our first category right now. And that is the very simple question that they hold for basically the end of the Oscar ceremony. What are the 4 best movies you've seen so far this year? I want you to define best however you choose to do so, with number 1 being your absolute best when it comes to what you saw so far here in 2024. All of this subject to change over the course of the remainder of the year. These are the midterms for a reason. Let's start off with our number 4 picks. I am going to go with a movie that, Tyler, I know that you liked very much. John, a movie that I know you may have seen while walking through your home at different points, but you haven't sat down and watched the whole thing. Late Night with the Devil is my number 4 pick. It is currently my favorite straight horror movie this year that doesn't include a little bit of sci-fi. We'll get into that in a little bit here. I'm spoiling my own list. But Late Night with the Devil is a movie that I absolutely adore. I think it is a very original concept. I love how they tie it in to 70s pop culture, and it takes on the king of late night himself, Mr. Johnny Carson, and I believe that this movie packs a heck of a punch and will be a movie that people are watching on Halloween night this year, and we'll start that tradition and maybe watch it year after year. What is number 4 on your list, Mr. Tyler Johns?
Number 4 on my list is Challengers. Late Night with the Devil just missed the cut.
Okay.
Just missed out.
Challengers is a wonderful film. It will be making an appearance here with me in just a little bit. But, John, I have to go with you for what is number 4 on your list.
Number 4 on my list is the only Marvel movie we got this year with Deadpool and Wolverine. It was a fun movie. It has brought the MCU back a little bit. And was just overall enjoyable, and it's one that I think I will, once it hits Disney Plus, I'm not one that typically goes to the theater multiple times, but once it hits Disney Plus, I will definitely watch and rewatch multiple times, especially the opening scene with NSYNC.
Yes, the opening scene with NSYNC, I called it right out of the gate. I said that will be the most rewatched YouTube scene for sure whenever a high-definition version of it comes out.
I've watched a million bootleg versions of it.
I've watched a million bootleg versions. It's tough not to watch it. You just want to click on it the minute you see it, and that goes to show you the staying power of that opening scene. And it was a little bit of a gamble because it's not a straightforward way to sort of do your opening credits, but I do think it is.
It's great for Deadpool.
Absolutely. One of the more
iconic
iconic
so
things.
well that NSYNC actually changed the music video for Bye 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 on YouTube to featured in Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yes.
At the end.
That is absolutely correct. It has given more life to that song. Still not enough, even with the popularity of that song and everything, to completely revitalize Justin Timberlake's career right now. But
trying.
They're definitely trying, and that doesn't hurt the fact that this is a
It'll
movie
help the world tour.
that going into this weekend slate is still at number one. It dropped out of number one here for a moment. I'm going to go ahead and run through the rest of my list because a lot of these have already been mentioned, and so I'm just going to run through the rest of my list, and I'll let you guys run through the rest of yours. At number 3 for me is Deadpool and Wolverine. I think it is an extremely fun time. I think it has tremendous closing credits. I found myself getting emotional during the closing credits of this movie. I was not expecting that. I laughed a lot during this movie, and it was a whole lot of fun, and it was like a thrill park ride. It really was. And I'm not quite ready to jump back on the thrill park ride because I enjoyed it so much the first go around, and I didn't expect myself to care so much about those end credit sequences, but it really is a reminder of how quickly some of the moments in your life go by, and the fact that all of these actors that were able to return or even make a debut with characters that they're so passionate about. I think this is a love letter to not only the Fox Marvel era, but also to the fans. And it is a wonderful party that people seem to be enjoying going back and reliving over and over and over again. For me, all I have to do is when I'm walking to another movie, just listen to the theaters that have doors open, and I can relive those moments vicariously through the audiences that are still currently enjoying those showings. At number 2 for me is Challengers. I was blown away by this movie. I think it has wonderful cinematography. I think it's captured so perfectly. Tennis is a great movie sport in that there is time to really digest what's going on. There's stakes. There's a build-up. Football is a great sport to watch. It's not as much maybe a great movie sport to watch. I actually think baseball is probably the best movie sport to watch, but tennis, I would really press you to find a better tennis movie around than Challengers. I absolutely love this. I think all of the supporting characters in this really shine. All of the extras, the bit roles, everybody enhances this world, and I think Challengers is a real winner. And it is a movie that I hope gets a re-release closer to award season because I do want to see it again in the theater. I absolutely love this movie. And number 1 for me is Alien Romulus. I've called it my favorite movie of the year, and it certainly is. I was not in love with the Alien franchise until Tyler put it in the Dune popcorn bucket, and we went to the theater for the re-release of Alien, and then I went on an Aliens kick, and then I watched Alien 3, and then I watched Alien Resurrection, which is awful. Alien 3 is awful. I watched all these Alien movies. I'm kind of in the kick, and Alien Romulus just hit at a perfect time for me. It's exactly what I was wanting. It fed my appetite, and I think it may be, and this may be blasphemous, it may be my favorite Alien movie ever made, Alien Romulus. That's how much I really, really love this movie and the choices they made with it. I've called it a greatest hits album for the Alien franchise, and it really does feel that way to me. And these are songs that still have a lot of bite, in my opinion, and I'm a big fan of Alien Romulus and will continue to champion that movie throughout the year. All right, Tyler, I've gone through my top 4. We now go to your number 3.
My number 3 is Alien Romulus.
Good
like
man.
you, Tim, I loved this movie. I loved how they brought it back to the original horror aspect, and I do feel like it is a greatest hits album for the Alien franchise. You get all the sci-fi bits of lore there that you get more of in Prometheus. You get the those moments of silence in the spaceship that just build the tension and build anxiety in you like you do with the original Alien, and you get some cool alien killing action like you do in Aliens. It is a crowd pleaser if you are even remotely fond of the franchise, I think. Number 2, Dune 2, this was sitting at number 1 for the majority of the year. So much so that I saw it 5 or 6 times. I really enjoyed this one. Cinematography was great. Acting was great. But it got beat out this past weekend by a movie called Sing Sing. And that was one of the most incredible movies I've ever seen. The acting in it is truly authentic, and I do think the cinematography is sneakily good, bringing you into the emotional state of the people in the movie rather than kind of keeping it dry in a way.
All right, very strong list there. John, I know that you are going to share at least one sentiment with Tyler on this list, possibly multiple sentiments as we get to your top 3 of the year.
My number 3 is Challengers, which I think is the movie we all agree on the most so far this year. You've all said what has made Challengers great acting. It was shot well, good story. Yeah, I don't have to say much more about that. Number 2 on the list is, like Tyler, Dune Part 2, which also features Zendaya in it as well. So she is now in 2 of the top movies here for me and Tyler, and it makes the list for all 3 of us in the top 4. The ensemble cast is what really helps with it. The cinematography is what helps with it. Denis Villeneuve is, to me, number 1 right now. In terms of overall directors. And then number 1 for me, Sing Sing was one of my most anticipated of the year, and it did meet every expectation that I had for it. And the opposite of Dune, as opposed to the ensemble cast, it's a cast of literally nobody, because it's literally a bunch of prisoners and Coleman Domingo, and I forgot the guy's name that played the teacher, but it's a great cast to not be much of a cast, really and truly. A lot of people playing themselves, but it's a great story that follows these guys who actually went through the rehabilitation program at Sing Sing, and I thought it delivered on all fronts and is a great A24 film this year that I highly recommend.
Paul Raci is who you're thinking of. I saw Sing Sing this week. I'm not as high on it as you guys are, but I did overall enjoy the film. I do think the cinematography is fantastic. I don't think Coleman Domingo's necessarily a lock for Best Actor. I think he will get a nomination, but I think there's still some room there for other people to jump in and potentially take the Oscar away from him, because this does at times feel a little Oscar baitish to me, and I do wonder how that's going to hold up throughout the course of the year. But with all that being said, just because I'm not as high on it as you guys are, I do recommend people see it. I do think that it is a very solid film. And for me, I think something that negatively affected my viewing of Sing Sing was the fact that I had seen a movie very similar to this in Ghostlight just a few months ago. And I know you guys haven't seen Ghostlight, but it is very oddly similar to how Sing Sing is. With theater sort of being something that sparks joy in broken men. And for me, I couldn't help but continue to think of Ghostlight throughout the entire course of watching Sing Sing. Let's go ahead and move on to our second category here, and that is what 2024 movie was fun to experience but doesn't quite make your top 4. Tyler, I'm going to let you kick this one off.
So I actually put 2 movies down for this one. One's a straight up Tyler pick that no one else will ever mention, and the other one is what is actually a fun movie that people should go see this summer.
Give me both.
So the Tyler pick, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2. This is absolutely ridiculous. It's a dumb premise for a movie, and the action and scares are even dumber, but I don't think I've had that much fun at a horror movie this year as I did at Blood and Honey 2. And then if you actually want a crowd pleaser, Bad Boys Ride or Die, the entire, bless you, John, the entire theater during my showing was packed out, laughing hysterically and fully engaged with the movie. It's a great time. The cinematography is also really good in that movie. There's some really cool sequences.
Oh, there's definitely the way the action is captured in that movie. They didn't just rest on their laurels. They actually did go through with trying to change up the game and bring some freshness to the franchise and to action comedy, buddy cop movies in general. And I do give it a lot of credit. I think that movie was better than it deserved to be in Bad Boys 4. Mr. John Lunsford, what movie, in your opinion, this year was fun to experience but doesn't quite make your top 4?
The absolute number one, not even remotely close, easy choice is Bad Boys Ride or Die. It was by far the most fun I've had in a movie theater this year. It's not going to make my top 10 at the end of the year necessarily. It was a good movie, but seeing it opening night with a completely packed theater was super fun. It's by far the most fun I've had. I know I will not top it this year in terms of fun from the audience being involved with the movie, laughing, going along with it, and then just the movie being super entertaining. It's one that I'm very much looking forward to rewatching. It will not have the same at home necessarily as it did in the theater with all those people, but I can think back to many moments and when a joke hits and think about how certain jokes hit with the crowd. It's by far the most fun movie this year.
There we go. Bad Boys Ride or Die. If you want to be a good boy and brush and floss, I recommend you visit our friends over at Alabama Dental Associates, as they're going to make sure that you're staying on track with all of your cleaning. The staff at Alabama Dental Associates provides specialized care in both general and cosmetic dentistry. While they're well trained in the latest techniques and use state-of-the-art equipment, they never forget their number one priority, and that is friendly, personalized care for their patients. Dr. Jeff and Dr. Brian, you hear me singing about them all the time in their praises. Dr. Nolan has officially joined the team now. The Pensacola, Florida native graduated from the UAB School of Dentistry in the top 10% of his class. Super nice guy to add to the team and an absolute winner there at Alabama Dental Associates. They work closely as a team, utilizing specialized training necessary to prevent, diagnose, and treat whatever your dental condition may be. See them today. Call them 205-956-8977, or you can visit alabamadental.com, where they look forward to seeing you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get to the movie that was the most fun to experience for me. And I wasn't going to do the thing where I pick multiple movies, but then Tyler did it, and I said, you know what, there's no other place I can work this movie in, so I'm going to do it here.
I'll stick to the rules then.
Well, I appreciate that, John, very much. But I was very conflicted myself because I narrowed it down to 2, and I was really back and forth. A movie that was very much, really both of these movies are kind of a little bit more niche. I really, really, really enjoyed Daddy-O, and I did not expect myself to, but it presented itself almost like a stage play to me, with 2 people in a cab on a car ride talking about life and all of their different perspectives and challenges from 2 totally different vantage points in life. And I thought it was one of the most well-written movies of the year. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought the performances were great. Dakota Johnson was really good in this compared to what her reputation is following Madam Web. Sean Penn, I thought, was perfect in that that performance could have come across as completely creepy, and it came across more as inquisitive and also a little bit just wanting to emotionally connect on a deeper level that may or may not lead to some level of physical intimacy, but either way, I found it to be a perfect balance there in Daddy-O, in a movie that I don't really know many other people have seen except for Tyler. Tyler, I'm not crazy for liking Daddy-O, right? It's actually pretty good.
You're not wrong. I did take a look at your letterbox though, and man, above Sing Sing, that's what hurt me. It's not that you thought it was good, because I enjoyed it. I thought the dialogue was great, and the exchanges, the roles of the characters that each person played, great. Not above Sing Sing, man, that hurt.
That's where it is right now. I'm not anti Sing Sing by any means, but I don't think it was the greatest thing ever, and I actually did prefer a movie like Sound of Metal compared to Sing Sing, but we can get into that discussion definitely at some point down the future. I do feel like I'm going to be looked at as the one that's cast aside for not praising Sing Sing as this perfect piece of cinema, but it is a very quality film, and I feel like giving it a 4 out of 5, I'm giving it what John gave The Acolyte. I think it's very fair to say that Sing Sing is worth a watch. The other movie that I really enjoyed was The First Omen. This is another movie that not a lot of people went to go see. It was going to be a Hulu exclusive. They decided to release it in theaters sort of last minute. And I think it is a super fun movie. But much like with Sing Sing, I was thinking of Ghostlight. With The First Omen, I was thinking of Immaculate the entire time. It is very similar in tones. It kind of got buried due to Immaculate coming out first. There's a bunch of movies this year that sort of mirror each other in tone. Like a lot of people thought that the Smile 2 trailer and Trap trailer were the exact same thing. And I mean, we've seen that a lot of constant mirroring of movies. And The First Omen kind of got lost there with Immaculate. But I really do think The First Omen is a great movie that, much like Alien Romulus, sort of is a greatest hits tour of that franchise, and really, I think, raises the bar for the impactfulness of the rest of the Omen movies. Okay, we move on to category number 3, and that is, what are the 4 worst movies you've seen so far this year? You can define worst however you choose, with number 1 being the worst. So, John, let's go ahead and start off with your number 4.
I have a pretty set list of the worst 4 movies of the year, and you get to be pretty special to fall into it. And number 4, when it comes to the 4th worst movie of the year, is Argyle. It was incredibly disappointing. It should have been good strictly based on the cast that was in it, and it was not. It was one we were looking forward to seeing early in the year to kind of kick off the year. I don't think it was the first 2024 movie I saw, but it was one of the first. So technically it was a top 5 movie for a little bit. But it was just a stinker all the way around.
John, speaking of Argyle, there's a lot of, I've seen articles that have come out talking about how big of a hit Argyle is now that it's on streaming, with so many different people having clicked it and watched it. It's just a very different barometer of how we should judge a streaming success, though, compared to a theatrical success, because everything about this movie theatrically pretty much flailed in the wind, but it's being sort of revived now as being this huge streaming juggernaut because people are seeing the star-studded cast there on the Click to Play Now banner, and they're clicking to play.
Like, the movie that just missed the list for me was Rebel Moon Part 2, because like it was really, really bad. But being on Netflix, I don't have as negative an opinion because I just watch it before bed one night, and I'm
not as much
I'm laying in
emotional
bed,
investment.
so I don't care. But Argyle, like, we all went to the theater to go see, to like kick off the year, of movies for us, because it was like February, March sometime. And
one of the few EG movies this year.
Yeah.
I think that was the first movie we all went to go see as The Meltdown.
Yeah, like we actually went to go see together, and it
If that's a sign of things to come, then please pray for us.
yeah, it was. I just made a fart sound because that's about how good it was.
Number 4 for me in worst movies, I really didn't like this movie. And you guys, I understand that you guys do like this movie, and that's fine. Somewhat. Furiosa, for me, I didn't like it the minute I walked out of the theater. I thought it was tedious and repetitive, and if I want to watch a movie like this, I would just watch Fury Road. I don't need Furiosa. I don't think it enhances the lore. I think that, and I've been this way since I first walked out of the theater, it just happened to also fall apart the Memorial Day box office, when it was supposed to be that film that sort of kicked off the summer, and did a poor job of that. I don't think we get any more Mad Max movies here in the near future at any point. I think that this one right here was a warning shot that audiences aren't really craving more of this world. And for me, some of the performances were just too over the top, and I really didn't like the action of Furiosa. So Furiosa for me is number 4. I think I'll be the only one that has this on my worst of the year list. Mr. Tyler Johns, how would you approach number 4 on your spots?
So I've got a vast wealth of movies to choose from.
You do.
For the worst movies, because I've just delved deep into the stinkiest stinkers of feature films you could make.
Right.
Number
See, there's a lot of movies, just to back you up here, there's a lot of movies that John and I refuse to go see, and you're like, I'll take those, and that's what we're about to get into here.
A lot of times in a week, there's one big movie that comes out, and we go see whatever that big movie is, and then Tyler's like, 3 other really bad movies that have negative scores on Rotten Tomatoes somehow, I'm going to go see.
Tyler's like, just walking out of Henchman 4, guys, and I'm like, there were 3 other Henchman movies? I didn't know that there were. Anyway, go ahead, Tyler.
Number 4 on my list, the movie about the possibly alien pet spider. It's Sting. This was my worst movie of the year at one point, because I thought there's just no way that it gets worse than this. It does. This movie took itself way too seriously. I went in expecting just a fun little creature feature type deal, and then you end up with a poorly written story about this girl trying to connect with her stepdad and like rekindle that relationship, and it's bad. It's bad. None of it works. The spider's not scary.
You did rail against this one earlier in the year. I mean, you at one point you were the only Letterboxd review for this film, and you'd given it
probably
a half
still
star.
am.
No, I think there's probably more
there's
Letterboxd
stuff
reviews now, but at the time you were the first one, and I can only think about myself being the filmmaker for this and then logging on to see my first review and it be yours, and I'd be just very disappointed. So, Tyler, the fact that this is now at 4 tells me that there's some movies that have really hurt you this year.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
The best thing is you can like become a fan of a movie and you go, I just went through all the ratings. There's thousands of ratings out there now, but there's only 2 fans of the of the movie. So it's funny.
They're both in it.
Yeah.
All right. John, what is at number 3 for you as we continue this list of worst of the year?
The vast majority of things we talk about will be theatrical releases. However, this is a streaming movie that I have to include that is part of the race this year, and I'll just
Unfrosted.
and that would be Unfrosted. I saw Jerry Seinfeld in person last summer in Vegas. He was doing his residency there at Caesars, and so my wife is obsessed with Seinfeld. So we gotta go see him. Okay, fine, we'll go see him. He's okay. It's not the best stand-up person to me, but he gets to the end and he's like, all right, I want to end with telling you a story. And he tells the story about going through the whole development of a movie and gets to the end and basically says the movie is about the creation of the Pop-Tart. And I'm thinking, oh, this is setting up for some joke about Pop-Tarts. And then he gets through the whole thing and says, by the way, the movie's out on Netflix next year. Bye. And that was the end of his stand-up after like 30 minutes of talking about how great this movie was going to be. It had a big cast in it, but it was one of the single worst things I've ever seen. Jerry Seinfeld needs to stop and disappear from humanity right now because after Seinfeld, the only lasting impression I have of him is B-Movie and this. And
B-Movie's good.
B-Movie is
Like jazz.
is not good. And Unfrosted was very, very bad. I highly recommend, if you're looking for anything on Netflix to watch, even watch Drop a Moon over Unfrosted.
All I hear is John babbling like a cicada.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go ahead and move on here to our next one. I am at number 3. Guys, another movie that I will have on my list that you guys will not for sure.
Yeah.
Gosh, I did not like this movie. I mean, I really didn't like it. And Boomer did not enhance my experience. It's The Fall Guy with Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt. I really found myself in misery during this movie. I did not think it was funny. It was also another movie that sort of had some trouble with word of mouth at the box office, getting people to actually go buy a ticket and see it. Once again, on digital, and when people could click a button on their home TV to watch it, I'm sure that they've eaten it up. But it was a total misfire for me, and I didn't like the blend of trying to have serious action with some of the dumbest dialogue that was trying to be funny, just didn't feel like it had the stakes that I was looking for with a movie like The Fall Guy, and I absolutely despised this one walking out of the theater as well. I was very prevalent about it then. I was very open about my feelings, and I still feel very strongly that The Fall Guy is a huge misfire. Tyler, where are you going with number 3 on your worst movies of the year list?
Number 3 was a movie we both saw. Before going into this movie, you said, there's no way that this can be worse than Strangers Chapter 1, because we had both seen that and thought it was absolutely awful. In a Violent Nature. This is an IFC Films horror movie, I believe. Tries to take you into the perspective of the killer in a Friday the 13th style story. But all you get is basically the GTA 5 third-person camera of someone walking around the woods for an hour. And, man, I've never been so disappointed by a horror movie before.
So In a Violent Nature did not make my worst of the year list, but everything you've said there, for the most part, I agree with. It was highly disappointing because it is a great concept, and if done with a little bit more pizzazz, the movie could have been an all-timer, and I'm not exaggerating. Like, I love the slasher genre. I know you do too. And this one I don't feel enhances the genre whatsoever. If anything, it makes people look at the genre and go like, this kind of sucks. And I don't disagree with that sentiment.
Yeah. This makes me have more praise for movies like Terrifier, whereas instead of insisting upon yourself as high art and not really putting anything together, you just throw together a Terrifier for under $100,000, and it's just an homage to the old garbage B movies.
It's also one of those slasher movies that has extremely dumb human characters.
Oh yeah,
I mean, like, really dumb, but it doesn't. They're not meant to be dumb. They're meant to be panicky, but even in real life, I don't see any of the real life figures making any moves that these human characters do. John, you didn't see In a Violent Nature?
That's just one of those movies that y'all get out of seeing, and I'm like, see, I told you. Horror movies, am I right?
Are you going to go ahead and go to your number
2 on my list?
Would this be actually? Is this number 3? Am I right or wrong about that?
Number 2. Unfrosted is number 3.
You're right.
Argyle's number 4.
You're right.
Number 2 on the list. This is something that comes from a franchise that I feel like is very much beloved in general by us and the general public. And they have tried every way possible to screw the franchise up as much as possible by not actually including Spider-Man in it. And that would be Madam Web at number 2. It is, if I walk out of a movie and technically it is very well done, that's 3 or 4 of the stars usually right there. And then all the rest makes up the rest of the score. Madam Web was technically a nightmare. The dubbed over voice of the bad guy was awful. The way things looked was awful, and the acting was awful. The story was awful. All on top of that, everything about Madam Web was really bad. Sydney Sweeney's 27 and playing a 15-year-old. I mean, the whole time jumping back and forth doesn't make any sense. They've printed newspapers 3 hours after events happened. It's stupid.
The movie's supposed to take place in 2002 or 2003, but there's a guy on the subway playing a PSP. Those didn't come out till 2006.
Yep. It's stupid. The end.
But you're okay with Sydney Sweeney playing a teenager in Euphoria?
That was also years ago compared to what this was this year.
I'm not trying to be the guy that defends Madam Web on here because I didn't see it.
And I feel like she plays an older teenager there as like a senior as opposed to here. I feel like she's not even a senior in high school.
I just hate the way you talk about horror movies, which, by the way, Sydney Sweeney in Immaculate, another mention of that, I think is really solid, and I think she's really good in it. For number 2 in worst movies of the year for me, oh my gosh, did I hate this movie. I'm still suffering physically from having seen this thing. I was very emotional coming out of the theater. You can check my reaction there on our channel. The Crow. The Crow is so bad. And there were so many debates about whether or not The Crow influenced Sting in the 90s with wrestling. And now we have The Crow and a movie called Sting in our worst of the years as a collective group because The Crow is horrendous. And I cannot, without going through it bit by bit, pinpoint for you exact frustrations I have. But I mean, the fact that they're in some facility to start off where they fall in love, that is some sort of co-ed rehab center where all I can think of is that more people would be prone to doing awful things at a facility like this where there's guards that lead them around, but yet they still have free reign to run around. And Skarsgård knows how to get out of the place at one point just in a moment's notice. And what a nightmare film just from the start. And I don't buy anything with the love connection, and the villain makes no sense in their sort of motivation. The Crow is truly an awful movie, and I was the one that thought the trailer looked all right, and I apologize for that because deep down inside this thing, its bones are not good. I think on the surface there was something here potentially that could work. I did.
The problem is you have in the original, Eric and Shelley are 2 very sympathetic characters, and you 100% buy their love because it's supposed to be the only pure thing in this city that is just pure evil and grime and disgustingness. And you've also got just no drive to care about this because they're awful people. They're hedonistic throughout the whole thing. They never show to really care about anybody other than themselves, whereas in the original, not only are they focused on, being with each other and having this pure love or whatever, they're also taking care of this little girl who was abandoned by her mother. And none of that in the remake happens and makes you think, oh, yeah, Shelley is a person worth doing all of this for.
This movie you are correct, and I'm going to sum it up in this phrase. This movie takes a giant dump on what is the secret sauce of humanity.
It does.
It just absolutely turns its nose up to anything that could be a connective tissue between itself and the audience. All right, The Crow, I really hate it if you haven't heard already. Tyler, where are you going for your next pick?
My number 2 pick, even though The Crow really made me angry, as you guys just saw, there was another movie that made me even angrier, and that was Borderlands. Because it's a beloved video game IP, and Lionsgate, again, like with The Crow, decided to ruin an IP, make it completely unlike the original, kill all the charm, the spirit of it, and you're just left with Jumanji in the desert, or Jumanji in the Fallout universe, and it's all terrible.
Another movie I chose not to see, but it seems like you and John are very much aligned in this being one of the worst movies of the year. I don't know if it's going to make the number 1 spot for John Lunsford, though. We're going to have to sit around and find out.
Number 1 on my list is Borderlands
there we
because
go.
it was so bad. It has a good cast in it that's just awful in every way. Jack Black makes you giggle a couple of times. It's the only thing that, on Letterboxd, as we go through and rank all of this stuff, you have to give it at least half a star in order to make it register. And so that's, I guess, what gets half a star is Jack Black is a good voice actor and, has obviously done Kung Fu Panda and plenty of things, Super Mario Bros. Last year. But it was awful. And I like what Tyler said. And this movie took like 4 years to actually shoot.
Yeah.
And it was just an absolute train wreck and disaster. And as good as video game things have been lately, that doesn't mean everything has to be done from the video game realm. This is one that was going to be tough to do and should have been left alone.
I was just
Lionsgate lately feels like they're just like, this is what younger people like, right? Let's throw a bunch of money at
How do you
it
do,
for
fellow
nothing.
kids?
Yeah. How do you do, fellow kids? Exactly.
in a year, I was going to bring this up before you even started getting into previous adaptations of video game content into movies and television, but in a year where you got Fallout, which has been one of the strongest shows we've seen this year, that really has started a conversation for video game content is now looked at as being more often good than bad, which for a long time was not the case. A movie like this really sets that conversation back because all I have heard are negative things about Borderlands, even though I have not gone to see it. Okay, for me, the worst movie of the year is, and it's got to be real bad for me to be worse than The Crow, but The Strangers Chapter 1
Oh, horror movie.
is awful. I cannot believe how bad. It's a very easy piece of subject matter. Couple at home in some sort of log cabin. They get a knock on the door. There's people with knives that want to kill them. They don't know why. They just want to do it. The other people, they don't know why. They just want to do it. It's very simple premise. It doesn't really need that great of a script to be able to be carried off and made successful. This movie would have benefited from less talking, less explaining, less everything. There's a scene John, what is my favorite condiment of all time?
Ketchup.
That is correct. There's a scene in this movie where they're eating at the dinner table and the guy's like, oh my gosh, there's just so much freaking ketchup on this burger or whatever. And it's blood dripping from the ceiling, and it's really quite awful. I mean, it's like, it makes me as a ketchup fan angry. It makes me as a horror movie fan angry. I hate the
I'm just
script.
taking win after win with this movie.
Hate the script. Hate the acting. Hate everything about this. I don't know, when does The Strangers Chapter 2 come out? September?
I think they both are supposed to come out this year, but I haven't seen any marketing, any promotional materials, nothing from it.
I really want to boycott Chapter 2.
This is like Horizon. It's like they planned all this out, and it's like, oh, crap.
That's exactly what it is.
The director almost had to apologize at one point for missing the mark, I think, after this, with how bad it is. It is absolute slop. I hate this movie. Another example of, like, for instance, if I want to watch Mad Max, I'm not going to watch Furiosa. I'm just going to watch Fury Road. If I want to watch The Fall Guy, I'll just watch the original television series. If I want to watch The Crow, I'll just watch the 94 movie. If I want to watch The Strangers Chapter 1, I'll just watch The Strangers. There's so many better versions of all of these movies. I don't know why they have to exist in the first place, other than it's IP that people are aware of, so people go to see it and then complain about it like me with The Strangers Chapter 1. I despise this movie. Tyler, what is the worst movie of the year for you?
The worst movie of the year for me, and I don't see anything beating this, is a movie that, unless you watch The Meltdown every day, you have probably never heard of, never even would think would be a movie. It's called Not Another Church Movie. And what this is a sort of vampires suck, meet the Spartans, epic disaster movie, parody movie, based around every Tyler Perry property there is. And going into it, I thought I might actually have a good time, even though it is going to be a bad quality movie. I'm expecting nothing above Meet the Spartans here. And it was abysmal. It was worse than I thought it was going to be. You think that they're going to be railing on all the Tyler Perry characters throughout the whole movie, but it ends up being just like a weird like kiss-up session for Tyler Perry, but with a worse plot than every Tyler Perry project put together. This was abysmal.
The fact that you said Tyler Perry tells you all you need to know, because that's exactly how this movie is being championed by those who maybe enjoyed, even though you saw it completely by yourself, which I would think would not enhance the experience whatsoever.
Yeah, I was in a completely empty
well, nobody's heard of it. Tyler's the one that saw it.
At one point, it was just so unbearable. I got up and I just started pacing the theater, just like, when is this going to end? I thought this was a parody movie.
It's amazing how many movies Tyler's seen this year that he comes Monday and he asks me, hey, have you seen such and such on the box office results? Because it doesn't even exist on there. And it's like, what did you see this weekend? And it's every weekend seems like there's one. I saw this weird movie this
Tyler's
weekend.
the only one that's really putting his money towards being able to champion Birmingham getting more movies, because
unless people go see them, they won't bring them.
Correct. So Tyler goes and sees almost
I like to
everything.
think I go see the good ones. I just don't go see those. Those I'm fine with not coming to Birmingham.
I don't see how Tyler in 2025 keeps up the pace of 2024 Tyler with the awful movies. I feel like at some point you're going to have had enough and you're going to say, I can't do this anymore.
I feel like I'm getting close to there already, but we'll see where I'm at in 2025.
Strong. The fact that The Crow has not made your worst list of the year is actually quite an upset, I think.
Yeah, it is. Not even in his bottom 10. Because as bad as that movie is, it can get so much worse. Just through like technical production quality, it can get worse.
All right, next we're going to move on to another category of what movie that you saw this year that wasn't one of your worst, but was deemed immediately forgettable to the point where you're just now thinking about it again for the first time. You know, once again, not a movie that was so bad that it was something you wanted to rail against, but not good enough for you to even remember hardly having seen it unless you look back at your Letterboxd. And for me, it was The Watchers, with M. Night's daughter directing this movie. I forget her name. Ishana Night Shyamalan. And it's not a horrible movie. It's not a good movie. There's one scene in it that I thought was pretty good, in a car with a mother and a daughter. But it is the most generic of horror movies. It really is like a 2005 sort of Japanese horror remake movie that happened to come in on the heels of The Ring being very successful. And I feel very indifferent about The Watchers. It's not good. It's not bad. It just happened to exist. I saw it, and I have no strong feelings about this movie. And I'm just now remembering that I actually watched The Watchers. Who watches The Watchers? I did, I think. Tyler, what movie for you is one that you had to sort of remind yourself that you saw?
So, once again, I've got two, because I barely remember anything about these movies. The first one, a horror movie called Tarot. I have no idea what the plot of this movie is. I just remember Jacob Batalon was in it.
I assume it involves tarot cards.
I assume it's kids messing around with tarot cards and, hijinks ensue. But I couldn't tell you to be sure.
Was this one of the movies you fell asleep in?
I probably fell asleep in it,
okay.
But I don't remember falling asleep in it. That's the weird thing. I remember seeing the ending of this movie. Okay. I remember Jacob Batalon saving the day. Spoiler alert for anyone who wanted to see
Well, darn,
Tarot.
Tyler, now we know.
And then the other movie I picked was A Sacrifice. This was a sort of horror thriller starring Sadie Sink from Stranger Things. And it's just incredibly boring. It's set up to be a psychological thriller about how she gets sucked into this cult, and her dad, who is a criminal psychologist, has to go save her, and it just does not execute on any interesting idea.
Sounds a little bit like The Boogeyman. I don't know if you saw that movie a couple years ago, but it has a very similar, sounds like a very similar story there. All right, John, we've picked horror nonstop this category, which I'm sure also makes you happy. What movie did you forget you even saw?
I was down to 2. One was The Watchers, and then I thought, no, this one actually probably is more because I don't think about it. Even though I talk about the movie If a lot, I never think about the movie Imaginary that is also horror. I mean, it was not a bad movie necessarily. It was a very forgettable movie because it was just kind of bleh. To talk about the other Imaginary Friend movie, though, that is a kid's movie instead, it's something that, you know, I think held pretty well and has some good, decent word of mouth, and people saw it and were like, oh, this actually isn't too bad. And for it to come out after Imaginary, the Blumhouse version, but to never think about Imaginary when I'm talking about Imaginary Friends, the movie If, it's just, I feel like it has to be super forgettable for me to talk about. You talk about there's like multiple movies from the same kind of thing. One's horror, one's kids, but it's about imaginary friends. And I talk about one and completely forget the other one even exists, even though I'm saying the word imaginary during it.
I feel like that one had more marketing than most like Blumhouse horror movies.
I saw a lot of
Chauncey the Bear.
The first trailer that was really bad, and then the second trailer that was a little better. I feel like I didn't see quite as much of, but I feel like I did see a lot of in 2023 coming into 2024, and then it came out like early 2024. But it was very forgettable.
What's not imaginary is us watching our weight with less terrets and more carrots at Way to Wellness.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that weight we had is now imaginary because it has disappeared, and there is us weighing in. You can go to planforme.com, learn more about our friends at Way to Wellness. I'm on a plan that works for me. Tim is on a plan that works for him. Yeah, they're giggling. Yeah. Jim Dunaway's on a plan that works for him. My dad is on a plan that works for him. You can go to a planforme.com, get a plan that works for you, just like we have a plan that works for us, and learn more about our friends from Way to Wellness.
All right, it is now time to get into one of my favorite categories. That is, which 4 male actors have given the best performances, leading or supporting, we're not dividing them up, of the year so far, with the first being the best. And I think what I want to do is go through all 4 of our choices, just boom, 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 and take turns, starting with Mr. John Lunsford. Which 4 acting performances stand out the most to you from male performers this year?
So number 4 on my list, I have Justice Smith from I Saw the TV Glow. I thought he was very good in that movie. That's one Tyler saw. You didn't see. Not a lot of people saw it. It's an A24 movie. Probably the thing Justice Smith is most known for is being a Detective Pikachu. He was the main character in Detective Pikachu, but
wasn't he in Dungeons and Dragons?
He was in Dungeons and Dragons too, but kind of
nobody really saw that either.
Very good movie. I highly recommend people go see that. But I thought he was really good, and I saw the TV Glow. Not a movie for everybody at all. It's very weird, very over the top artsy. The perfect kind of pretentious that I look forward to in movies, but he was very good in it. I thought
you did walk out of that movie saying, "Tim, I don't think you'd like this." So I was like, "Okay, well, that's good enough."
And y'all were coming out of In a Violent Nature because y'all were seeing that down the hall. So that's really the biggest reason I went to go see. I wanted to see it anyway, but when it came out, Tyler went to go see it when it came out, and for whatever reason I didn't because it was one of those like something else big had come out, so I saw that instead of doing the 5 movies in a weekend like Tyler does. But y'all went to go see that, and I said, oh, okay, well, I don't want to see that garbage. I'm going to go see this instead. And I thought it was really, really good, and it's a top 10 movie so far on the year for me. I don't know if it'll end up there, but I thought it was pretty good. Number 3, I'm going to go with Timothée Chalamet from Dune 2. I thought he was very, very good in that movie. You cannot have Dune 2 work without him, the main character, being very, very good in it and kind of playing that learning how to be power hungry kind of role that he played in that. Number 2 for me, I'm going to go with Jesse Plemons from Civil War. Was very, very good in that. We have had our debates about Civil War. We've had our Civil War about Civil War. But the one thing I think we all definitely agree on is Jesse Plemons in that movie, even though he's only in it for a little bit of time. And then number 1 for me is Coleman Domingo from Sing Sing.
Okay, we only share one acting performance throughout all of those. Do you know which one it is?
Jesse Plemons.
That is incorrect.
Coleman Domingo.
That is correct. Coleman Domingo as Divine G in Sing Sing. That's number 3 for me. Number 4 actually comes from Dune Part 2, and it's not Timothée Chalamet.
Javier Bardem.
Javier Bardem
is number 5 for me.
The best acting performance in that movie, and it's not even close from a male perspective, in my opinion, as Stilgar. I didn't love Dune Part 2. I mean, I didn't love it. I liked it. I didn't love it. But every time Javier Bardem was on the screen, I thought he stole the show.
The only problem with him is it was a little too goofy and over the top.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't bad at all, and he would be right an honorable mention on my list, but it's a little too much.
But you agree Javier Bardem more likely to get an acting nomination than Timothée Chalamet at the Oscars?
I don't think either one does.
Now,
but
Timothée Chalamet, I'm talking about for Dune Part 2, not for the Bob Dylan movie. That's probably going to be the thing that
he would get.
Yes.
He probably will get nominated for that, but I honestly don't know. I don't think either one of them does.
Okay,
So,
we'll see.
I think
Javier
that's a moot
Bardem,
point.
mark it down. Best Supporting Actor nom at the Oscars, I think. Coleman Domingo at number 3. Sing Sing doesn't work without Coleman Domingo. He's fantastic. I love Coleman Domingo. I love his voice. Everything he's in, and he enhances, whether it's Euphoria or even a movie I did not like hardly at all, but it would have been one of the best horror movies I saw this year if it had come out this year. That's the Candyman sort of relaunch, reboot, remake, whatever you want to call it. I didn't love that movie. I don't know if it knew what it wanted to be and where it placed itself within the Candyman franchise, but Coleman Domingo is fantastic in that film. And I think he's really, really, really good in Sing Sing. I do think it's a movie that is built around that performance in a way that will hurt him at the Oscars with a run. It will hold him back from, I think, potentially winning. It depends on what else he's up against. But right now, he is the perceived frontrunner for the Best Actor award at the Oscars. And there's a reason for that. It's because he's really good in this role. But much like his character, where he's a little disappointed with maybe how he's being perceived by others, I think Coleman Domingo may be in that same situation when he's being viewed by his peers later at the Academy Awards when we cover that. At number 2, another movie that doesn't work without this performance, David Dastmalchian as Jack Delroy in Late Night with the Devil. If you would have told me that this character actor would have been in this role, I would have told you I don't think it's going to work. And he even said the same thing, that this is so outside of his comfort zone. He's not that sort of everyman funny guy that could play this perfect Midwestern late night show host. And he did a wonderful job making me believe that he was almost a 70s version of a Jimmy Fallon type that can't figure out why he can't get over with the general public and beat Carson finally. And he's willing to sell his soul to the devil to potentially do that, just to have the ratings boost. It said a lot about the media industry. It said a lot about the entertainment industry. And I think his performance is spot on and fantastic in Late Night with the Devil. And it will be one that people are still talking about potentially a decade, 2 decades from now, as being those performances that they remember from horror movies, especially from this generation. And number 1 for me, I said this coming out of the theater. I still feel very strongly about it. David Johnson as Andy in Alien Romulus. I loved this, thought this performance was pitch perfect. And it's amazing that a movie like The Crow, which I hate, you heard me talking about that. I saw them a week apart. And The Crow strips itself of all humanity. And David Johnson, who's not even a human character, I think brings so much more humanity than The Crow ever can even sniff up. I really love this performance, and I hope that more people get a chance to see Alien Romulus and that we see more of David Johnson as this character potentially down the line. You never know what they may do with the non-human characters in this lore, and I look forward to seeing what happens with that character if we get more Alien movies. All right, Tyler, what are your 4 strongest male performances of the year thus far?
All right, at spot number 4, it's actually a tie. I've got... in a movie that we all were looking forward to, but very disappointed by, Trap. I thought Josh Hartnett was fantastic.
He was.
I thought he was great. The third act completely falling apart is not his fault. I thought that the first half of the movie, excellent. Some of the best I've seen this year. Number 3, I've also got David Johnson from Alien Romulus as Andy. You are right, Tim. He brings more humanity to the role than Skarsgård does with The Crow, but that's not saying much because I don't think the makers of The Crow have ever interacted with a human before. So
Yes.
Low bar to clear, but you're right. David Johnson was fantastic as Andy. Everybody just loses their mind in the theater at his line towards the end and his delivery. Number 2, I agree with you guys. Timothée Chalamet in Dune 2. That movie does not work without him and learning to become a power-hungry emperor. And then wrapping it up at number 1, Coleman Domingo in Sing Sing.
If we do get in any way a consensus of a better performance than Coleman Domingo in Sing Sing this year, because that seems to be the consensus pick from the three of us. He's the only one that makes all three of our lists. It will be a very strong finish to the year. I just haven't pinpointed where that performance is going to come from yet. What movie? Maybe Timothée Chalamet in the Bob Dylan movie? Possibly. But, I mean, are we at peak Chalamet right now where we're coming off of Wonka, we're coming off of Dune? Is it going to be a movie that propels his status even more? We shall see. But it's kind of where we're at. All right, it's now time for what performance from a male actor is in contention for worst performance of the year. I'll kick this one off because I have a very odd choice, I think, but it is one that drove me insane. And that is, if we go back to Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, Finn Wolfhard is god-awful in that movie. He's playing himself.
Hey, he's just playing this.
That's what he does with every
same
movie.
kind of stupid kid he is in Stranger Things and everything else.
There's a scene where he like comes down the steps to say something, and he's like, "So like, you know, am I gonna get an answer? No, okay, well, all right." And he runs back upstairs. It's awful. Finn Wolfhard in that movie stands out like a sore thumb, where everybody, it feels like they're like sort of locked in, trying to give some sort of either over the top comedic performance, or they're trying to find some sort of gelling of the role. And Finn Wolfhard really does feel like a teenager that doesn't want to be there at all, even though now he's probably 25, 26. I don't know how old Finn Wolfhard is, but he is totally checked out in this movie. And I thought the performance was distractingly bad.
He's 21.
He's 21. I thought it was distractingly bad how bad Finn Wolfhard was in Ghostbusters Frozen Empire.
I slept through
he
half
didn't
of
even
it,
try.
so-
He took the paycheck and ran. He didn't even try, John. Go back and watch it.
I'm good.
Tyler, what performance by a male actor was the absolute worst in your opinion this year?
This was tough for me to choose. My first instinct was Kevin Hart in Borderlands because the character he's playing is nothing like Kevin Hart, but he still brings the Kevin Hart energy to the role. Roland is supposed to be a jacked, stoic guy who doesn't really understand comedy. So, you know, let's throw Kevin Hart in there. Yeah, that was awful, but I don't think that's as much Kevin's fault as in The Beast Within, Kit Harington's character. Abysmal. That was awful. Nothing happens. When I tell you nothing happens in that movie, I mean it. Nothing happens. This is not some emotional story. This is a story about a girl whose dad is a werewolf, and at the end, all the same situations are still there. Nothing ever gets resolved.
Well, Kit Harington on the red carpet's saying a lot. If he's not saying a lot on the screen, he's definitely saying a lot
won't
behind
shut
the
up.
scenes.
He's doing a lot of yapping.
John, worst male performance of the year is?
I think this one stands out as so bad because the movie was so bad, and B, there were so many good actors in the movie with this person, and they were promoted as a main character, and they really weren't, except for in the third act of the movie. But it is Joe Alwyn from Kinds of Kindness. That movie was so disappointing, and he was having to act next to Jesse Plemons, who is very, very good, Willem Dafoe, who's very, very good, Emma Stone, who's very, very good, Mark Wahlberg's good, Hong Chau's good. There's other good people in it too, but
But he stood out like a sore
he stood
thumb.
out so bad. And in the third act, it's all about like him and Emma Stone used to be married. And Emma Stone runs off to a cult, and then she keeps coming back to him because she wants to see her daughter. And every time they interact, it's like you have Emma Stone, okay, who just won an Oscar for doing a movie with Yorgos, and has won multiple Oscars, and has been a part of your favorite movie of all time, is
Yep.
one of the leads in your favorite movie of all time, and it's just been so good. And then you have Joe Alwyn, who's been drugged through the mud because of Taylor Swift, and then pops up in this movie as, hey, here's all the, because in the trailer it would be, here's all the, boom, big actor, boom, big actor, boom, big actor, Joe Alwyn, boom, big actor, and it's like, what is this dude doing here? And it's so bad, and certain things happen within that storyline that also are very weird, and just not, it's just, I don't want to think about it anymore. It's so bad.
Yeah, that movie, I was really excited to see it based on the pedigree alone, and then I heard Tyler and John talk about it,
Should be.
and I stayed as far away as I could because they were like, please just don't go see it. So I didn't. I trusted them. That is what we do here on the Meltdown. We trust one another. Tyler, what is your answer for the next category, which is name the 4 actresses, leading or supporting, that have impressed you the most so far in 2024, with your first being the best?
You want me to run through all of them?
All 4.
Alrighty. Number 4, Mia Goth from Maxine. She was great in both X and Pearl, and just keeps that up in Maxine. Great way to end that trilogy. Number 3, Anya Taylor-Joy. She was in both Dune 2 and Furiosa this year, but I would prefer her performance in Furiosa because she's in that one for more than like 5 minutes. Number 2, Kaylee Spaney. Not from Civil War, though, from Alien Romulus. I thought she did an excellent job in the role and really embodied that Sigourney Weaver Ripley spirit and bringing that into
Very
the
big
age.
shoes to step into for sure.
Yeah, those
Even though she's not
those
playing
Reeboks are tall, but she does a good job.
She's not playing the same character. I just want to make that clear to anybody who's watching going, she's not Ripley. We know that. But she has to
She's very
take on the
similar, though.
Ripley type role.
She is a Ripley stand-in
Yes,
for Alien
yes,
Romulus.
yes. And number 1.
Number 1 for best female performance, it is Zendaya, and I didn't like her as much in Challengers, but I loved her in Dune 2.
I think that she is stronger in Dune Part 2 than she is in Challengers. And I thought Challengers was one of the best movies of the year. But I think Zendaya is actually one of the weaker parts of Challengers when it comes to her aging
agree.
up in that movie. I think she plays young, the young
Yes.
athlete very well. I think she's not great at playing sort of the saucy mama character that she later embodies. Not sure. Can I say that?
That's one way.
Let me just say,
I know what you mean.
she's a Foxy Cleopatra stand-in, and it doesn't work. I
Okay.
am Foxy Cleopatra, and I'm a
a
whole lot of woman.
Shazam!
Okay.
I don't know where this is going.
Is it my turn now?
It is.
So this is I was going to say this is the list that Tim rolls his eyes the most at, but not super different from Tyler's. Number 4, Maxine just missed the list for me with Mia Goth. The movie was okay, but I thought she was good in it.
Same here. She barely missed my list.
Number 4, Anya Taylor-Joy from Furiosa, and in that one,
I roll.
once again, she was in Dune for 30 seconds, but she was very good in Furiosa. I thought you have to, obviously, as the main person, you have to embody that role and embody what
Charlize Theron was better.
did with that role, and then play a younger version of that. Number 3, I thought Kirsten Dunst was good in Civil War. I say it's kind of similar because you say Kaylee Spaney, even though it wasn't from Civil War. I wasn't as big a fan of Kaylee Spaney in Civil War. I would say her best performance is Alien this year between those two. But I thought Kirsten Dunst was good and played kind of the war-hardened photographer well. Number 2, I'm going to go with Katie O'Brien, and not from Twisters, but from Love Lies Bleeding, which is still one of my top movies of the year. And I thought she was very, very, very good in that. And then number 1, I'm going to go with Zendaya, but I am going to go with Challengers. I am not as down on Zendaya and Challengers as y'all were. However, if you're going for I feel like sometimes at the Oscars they'll give you an award because you had a really good year. It may not be for the movie that was the highest grossing. It may not be for the movie that people remember the most. And I think the perfect example of this is Alicia Vikander when she won for The Danish Girl. Because that movie was an Oscar bait movie for Eddie Redmayne, who had just won. And I think he got nominated, but he didn't win. But she won for that. But that was also the year she played in Ex Machina as well, that I feel like has been very well received and may not have crushed it at the time, but obviously has had a big following since. But you have kind of one of those years where you do a lot of things. I don't think she'll get nominated for either one of them. But I think that's one if she did, it's because she had a really solid year with both Challengers and Dune.
So somehow, neither of you have named any of the female performers that I have on my list so far. So let's see how much you hate my list, John. At number 4, I'm going to go with a movie that I didn't necessarily like, but a performance that I think is worthy of getting some credit here because she's actually the star of this movie. She's actually the one that I think makes this work, and that's Jodie Comer as Kathy in The Bike Riders.
She was okay.
I think that she's the best part of that movie, performance-wise.
I mean, I agree with that.
She is, but that's not saying much.
I know that's not saying much, but if there's going to be an acting performance from this that's nominated, it's going to be Jodie Comer from The Bike Riders. I can't speak about The Bike Riders because it's a movie that kind of hurt me spiritually. I'll talk about it in a second. Number 3 for me is a movie that Tyler really hates or really, really doesn't like. And I thought the performance was exactly what it needed to be. In Michael Monroe as Agent Lee Harker in Longlegs, I think it worked perfect as she was volleying across the table from Nicolas Cage. I really like Longlegs, and I'm not apologetic for it in the least bit. I think it is a very solid movie. and I thought it would be in contention for my favorite horror movie of the year, and it surely is part of that bunch of best horror of the year for me in Longlegs. I didn't think it was overhyped. I really didn't think it was too pretentious or artsy. I thought it was spot on, and it created a great sort of setting throughout the course of that movie and a great sort of feeling of unsettled. I was unsettled watching every frame of that movie, so I really liked it. Number 2 for me, and I don't know if you guys will think this is a cop-out answer. I do think it's a wonderful performance. It's a voice performance from Maya Hawke as Anxiety in Inside Out 2. I know, Tyler, you didn't see Inside Out 2, but I think Maya Hawke crushes it in this role and really adds a lot as Anxiety. And if you go back and watch our trailer reaction, I thought Anxiety was not necessarily the best developed character just based on what I saw in the trailer and first impression, but throughout the movie, I mean, I really think Maya Hawke delivers a very strong performance. John, is there a better female performance in Inside Out 2 vocally than what Maya Hawke does as Anxiety in that film?
I still probably think, and I don't remember her name, but Phyllis from The Office embodies sadness almost better than anybody else in that movie, male or female. But Anxiety, while I agree Maya Hawke is very good in that role, she's really acting very similar to, we talk about Phil Wolford acting the same in all of his roles. She's acting very similar to her role in Stranger Things too. So Stranger Things 3 and 4 technically, but Stranger Things also is what I meant. She didn't show up till the 3rd season, but
T-double-O.
But it's very similar to that. I won't fully say it's a cop-out answer, but it was good.
It's a performance. It's a female. I'm going for it. All right, number 1. No, once again, a movie I didn't necessarily love, but I raved about this performance. I still think that it is the strongest female performance in what is a giant ensemble. In Dune Part 2, Rebecca Ferguson as Lady Jessica, she is outstanding in this movie, and I feel like I'm in an interesting perspective here because I didn't like Dune Part 2 as much as you guys did, but you guys are champion roles in that movie that I'm not championing, and vice versa, and I really do think Rebecca Ferguson has delivered the best on-screen performance from a female that I've seen in the theater this year. Where are you guys on Rebecca Ferguson?
I thought she was great.
I mean, she was fine. She just doesn't do it for me in general.
Oh.
Whenever she's on screen, Mission Impossible, Greatest Showman is where I really kind of start going down on her. It's just, she just doesn't do it for me.
She was in Greatest Showman. Forgot about that.
We only have a few more categories here remaining. We're going to get through those, and it leads us right to what performance from an actress is in contention for worst performance of the year. I'm not going to go too crazy in depth on this one again, but FKA Twigs as Shelley in The Crow, it is a role that you have to care about for that movie to work, and I was rooting for her death, and I hate to admit that, but I could not wait for her to die knowing that it was coming based on the trailer. So, FKA Twigs as Shelley in The Crow, who I don't think has any other acting experience. She's not accredited to any other role.
She's mainly a singer.
She was in
I want to say I was going to say she was in a movie with Shia LaBeouf because they used to be a thing.
And I don't even think they get her to sing in The Crow. I don't remember her singing at
She
any
sings
point.
for about 5 seconds.
Oh, like when they're in the bathtub or whatever?
Yeah. It was like one of those scenes.
Anyway,
But,
FKA Twigs as Shelley in The Crow.
You're 100% right.
Whew.
Shelley in that movie is someone you've got to care about. Has to appear ethereal and pure.
There's no chemistry.
And worth selling your soul for eternity to go save.
Right. There's absolutely no chemistry, no character development there that makes me care about her at all. And I think the performance is extremely weak. And I don't understand why anybody would be in a situation where they wanted to save Shelley from The Crow so badly that they were willing to go through the things that were gone through in this. So, Tyler, what is the worst female performance you saw this year?
Dakota Johnson in Madam Web.
The correct choice.
I haven't seen it.
Because, my gosh, she is
So
emotionless in
She's
that movie.
you have to at least care about the movie. I'm sure FKA Twigs may have been trying. She's just not an actress and not very good. A lot of these movies we talk about, they're at least trying. They're just not very good at what they do. Dakota Johnson has done good stuff before. Apparently Daddy-O is good this year. She will win the Razzie for Worst Actress this year. It was one of the worst performances I've ever seen in my entire life, and no other movie is ever going to change that. And Dakota Johnson is completely dead in my book.
Tyler, you know how you picked a good pick? John made it his pick. I mean, he just literally took it. He took possession of it, and he went on the same hate spree that you're going on because
It's just the truth.
I'm not saying you're wrong for it. I'm just saying that like it became just generalized conversation at that point, which shows me that you're right on the pulse of what a lot of people are thinking.
Yeah, it was awful. Even before the movie came out, it seemed like she didn't want it to come out or to be known as being in Madame Web.
Yeah, she couldn't defend her casting in the movie.
Every interview, it's I don't know if this movie will be any good or worth watching. I've never filmed on blue screen before. I don't know how this is gonna look.
It's not even like an independent.
I thought Marvel actually gave me the job, and then we filmed the movie.
Like, I imagine a movie like Daddy-O. I haven't seen it, but you don't have to do a lot. You have to act, but like you're not physically doing a lot. You're sitting in a cab the entire time. You have to physically do a lot in a superhero movie. No matter what kind of superhero movie it is, you have to physically do a lot. Therefore, I have to imagine you have to care, to want to be there, to go through all of the physical aspects of this to get your paycheck at the end of the day. Whatever it was too much, and she deserves to pay everybody back that went to go see that movie.
There's no choreography in the back of Sean Penn's cab.
Between her, as a nepo baby, her family, they should be able to pay everybody back.
Tyler, I want you to go ahead and name the 4 films that weren't that bad or necessarily that bad, but they never quite reached the potential you at some point saw in them. And I want you to rank them in order of disappointment. Once again, these aren't horrible movies, but they just disappointed you in some aspect.
So at number 4, I almost had The Crow on there until I reread the question and saw it said wasn't that bad. So that kicked that one to the curb, but I was very disappointed with that movie. Number 4 goes to The Watchers. I was really interested in the concept and seeing what M. Night's daughter could do, and that movie just fell flat. Number 3, Civil War. This was a really hyped up movie, and I was looking forward to seeing it. And then I was disappointed because I didn't feel like I got any big philosophical issues to chew on after the movie and think about.
But that's the genius of it, the fact that it doesn't actually have a story.
Let's not rehash that argument, Tim. If you want to see that argument, you can go to our Civil War spoiler review where it's an actual Civil War in Meltdown. Number 2, The Bike Riders. This was a movie I was anticipating so much because I'm a big fan of Sons of Anarchy and Mayans, and this felt like a Sons of Anarchy prequel to me until I actually saw the movie, and I tried to trick myself I tried to gaslight myself, honestly, into thinking that this was a 4 out of 5 or whatever I gave it.
I'm glad you brought that up because you were high on it coming out of the theater, which made me higher for it.
Yeah, I just wanted to love it, and then maybe a few days went by, and I just thought, that really didn't have any of what was marketed to be in it. Yes. It was just a different movie. So, yeah, that was disappointing. And then number 1, I have not been more disappointed by a movie this year, and that is Trap. First half of the movie, I'm thinking this is a 5 out of 5 experience. This could be an all-timer. This is definitely one of the top movies of the year. Third act hits, and you think, wow, I've never seen someone fumble it just short of the end zone like that before.
So I'm going to go out of rotation just simply because I'm echoing a lot of sentiments that Tyler just put out. Trap is my most disappointing movie of the year in that it could have been an all-timer, like you said, and I cannot think of a worse third act where I've never seen a movie wither up and die as quickly as Trap did after what was a perfect blooming session there. It was just, everything was going so smooth. I was laughing. I was in on it. I thought it was great. And then it goes completely nonsensical. Like we're just going to have completely unanswerable questions in the third act to where, you care so much about logistics and realism and all that for the first 2 acts. And then third act, you're just going to throw that all out the window. And all of a sudden the guy's a superhero. No thanks. Number 2, A Quiet Place Day 1 was super disappointing for me. I really didn't like this movie very much. thought it could have been really, really great with the premise and expand more on the world and have us asking more questions. And instead, it was very much just an entry that was very forgettable. At number 3 was The Bike Riders for me. It was one of my most anticipated of the year, and I thought it was just very milk toast. There's nothing in there, nothing really that was substantial. And then the movie that was just borderline for me, I'm going in reverse order again because, Tyler, I wanted to echo some of those sentiments. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. This was one of my most anticipated of the year. And once again, I don't think this is a bad movie by any means. I don't think it's a bad movie, but I do think it is one of the weaker entries in the franchise when it could have been one of the strongest based on the premise. And I really did think the human characters in this were really dumb and didn't add hardly anything. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is a movie that overall I recommend and I like, but is one that isn't much of a thinker. And I wanted a little bit more philosophy in there, a little bit more of a debate, a little bit more of a, what does this mean for the lore of the apes? And instead, all I got was pretty much a straightforward action-adventure movie where they're jumping from mountains to mountains. All right, Mr. John Lunsford, give me your 4 in whatever order you choose.
Number 4, I have Godzilla X Kong, or just Godzilla Kong.
Ouch.
Godzilla Kong: The New Empire.
The New Empire. If there's as much as I enjoyed the story of Godzilla -1, and it wasn't about Godzilla destroying the town quite as much, I want my Americanized Godzilla to be strictly Godzilla destroying things, period, end of story. And when they just talk at all, I don't want it. And so I feel like there could have been more to that, and there is more to come. They will continue to make these movies because overall they do well financially. So hopefully we'll get that. The next one, just literally 0 dialogue. You don't have to write it. Only dialogue is roar from Godzilla.
I watched it with open captions. There were a lot of roars written in there.
Number 3, The Fall Guy. I thought The Fall Guy was good. It could have been great with the cast that was in it. Ryan Gosling is coming off being nominated for an Oscar. Emily Blunt coming off Oppenheimer. And coming off Barbenheimer, they should have come together and made a great movie. It was just good, not great. You remove Aaron Taylor Johnson, I probably like it a lot more because if you watch the show, I strongly dislike that guy. Number 2 for me is Trap. So that is the one I feel like that I guess the only one that we all have. It was very disappointing in the third act. I wasn't as high going in because M. Night Shyamalan's best for me is a 7 out of 10. His worst for me is like a 4 out of 10. And so I expected this to be more in the 7 out of 10 range. And it still probably ended up there. It just was a very disappointing third act. And then number 1 for me, I still very much enjoyed this movie, but it was not what I expected. So I'm a little disappointed in If. I wish If had been a little more
earned.
I wish it had been a little more Inside Out-ish as opposed to depressing. Like really depressing, like leaving the theater. And once again, I didn't dislike that aspect of it, but like I'm in a theater full of children because I went to go see it. Once again, my wife to go see some horror movie, and so I went to go see this instead. And I walk out of the theater, and I'm like, if I was a kid, like, yeah, there's a few funny moments in this, but like, I'm not walking out of this thinking, yay, that was such a fun movie, like you do with even Inside Out that still makes you cry at the end, but the kids at least enjoy it because of the fun colors and stuff. It could have been a lot more, and Ryan Reynolds was not a good casting for the main.
I agree, it was a
adult human character.
The feeling I've set on with If here is that it's like watching a Christmas cartoon that you really like that's kind of cheery and fun, and then it goes into a commercial where it's about to get sad. Like, a family is returning home, but Grandpa ain't there this year or something, and they're all like carving up the turkey going, Grandpa would have loved this, and it's like, oh my gosh, and then it's like, now back to your cartoon, and it's like, oh, okay. And then it's like, the next thing is like sharing a cup of coffee with a woman who...
That's a good comparison.
You know what I mean?
It was like
jarring.
Watching Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends on Cartoon Network. It goes to commercial, and Sarah McLachlan shows up.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, that's what this movie was like for me.
And John Krasinski does the movie, so he has to, of course, put himself in the movie. And as good as A Quiet Place was, he's done plenty of good things. But like we always make fun of Detroit, the movie Detroit. He bursts in at the end like a lawyer, like Kramer bursts in on Seinfeld, yes. And all you see is Jim from The Office. Well, so when he comes up here, he's trying to be funny, but the whole time he's trying to be funny, he's like, haha, I'm being funny because I'm dying. And it's like, what? It's
Yeah.
like Jim from The Office
Yeah.
is dying, and I'm supposed to am I supposed to laugh? Am I supposed to be sad? I'm not 100% sure about this.
Ush had a wonderful off-air review of this where he walked in and went to the movies this weekend. Let me guess, you saw If? Yeah, how'd you know that? Because every guy your age right now is taking their family to go see If. Oh, well, I was one of them. And that movie was kind of good, but it was kind of sad, but it was kind of not funny, but it also was kind of okay. But it was like,
I mean,
I should go to the movies more. All right, bye, Tim. I'm going to do the Pennant Grace. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much
That's
that
an
movie.
accurate review.
There we go. All right, now we are getting into our final two categories. These will be really quick. We're going to go with the quickest one here, which is what 2024 movie looked so bad
The Crow.
or irritated you so much
The Crow.
to the point that you purposefully skipped it. John,
The Crow.
no spoilers here, but what did you choose for your choice?
The Crow.
Good answer.
Even while y'all were trying to hype it up during the trailer, when we did our trailer reaction, I'm like, this is the stupidest looking thing I've ever seen in my life. And y'all saw it, and guess what? It's the stupidest thing y'all have ever seen in your life anyway.
Every now and then it'll be some serious thing. It's like, I'm not even sure if that's exactly what a crow sounds like.
It's a hard pass.
Mine was Madam Web. You guys have railed against Madam Web. I told you when I saw the preview, I said, this will be the worst movie of the year, guys. And, I don't think it'll be the worst movie of the year. I think isn't it?
It's
both
I still
No,
don't have
it's
it as
both
the
on
worst
y'all's
movie of the
list,
year for
right?
me.
I don't have it as the worst movie of the year.
Is it
No,
on
it
y'all's list? Anyway, Madam Web, complete cluster. I haven't seen it. It's going to be hard for me to watch it after hearing y'all's review. I don't know why I would. Tyler, what was the movie that you actually did skip because it should have been not another church
None.
movie?
Horizon, an American Saga,
Oh,
Chapter
yeah.
1.
Also up there.
I skipped this one because I had the A-list spots, honestly, and I'd like to get to 100 movies. I'm not sitting through a 3-hour Western to get there.
Oh, it's not a 3-hour Western. It's a
3-hour part 1 of a
12-hour.
Western.
Oh, yeah, my bad. This is just the first chapter, so I got to sit through a quarter of a 12-hour Western
Right.
with Kevin Costner.
I'm going to give a little note to Hollywood here.
Oof.
Quit
No, thank you.
labeling things Chapter 1 or Part 1. Quit doing it. Because there is no guarantee of a Part 2 or Chapter 2, so quit promoting it that way. It always backfires.
What happened to everybody making fun of M. Night for doing that with Last Airbender? But guess we all forgot that he actually
never
thought
made a
he was
part
going to
2.
have 3 more of those.
Do you think we get a Trap Part 2, by the way?
No.
Anyway.
No.
Yeah. So those Horizon, none of us saw that. Madam Web, you two saw it. The Crow, us two saw it. But I think Horizon may actually win the argument because literally none of us have seen it. And between the three of us, we see every movie. I mean, between the three of us, we see every movie just about. And none of us went to go see Horizon. It
Like
didn't speak to a
Horizon's
single
like-
one of us.
I just don't care. When Kevin Costner appears, I just don't care. Like The Crow, I wanted to hate. Like Horizon, I just don't care.
Yeah. I don't care, man. All right. This last category is the one I'm actually looking most forward to because it is about those movies that we really do genuinely care about that have not yet come out. This will be the last part of our midterm. What are currently based off of what you know right now, because this can change tomorrow if something drops. What are the 4 movies you anticipate seeing most for the remainder of the year? First being the one you anticipate the absolute most. I think mine's probably the most predictable, so I'm going to go first. Number 4, The Substance. It's a movie with Demi Moore that's getting a lot of buzz. I'm probably going to be disappointed by this if I had to guess, but I really want to see it.
Isn't Dennis Quaid in that
Dennis
as
Quaid is in this. The more of the trailers that I see, this could be one of the most shocking movies of the year. And I'm really hyped up for The Substance. And maybe I'm just buying into the festival hype and I'm going to get burned and John's going to go, ha ha. You know, he's like
well?
Nelson.
I honestly think John should go see it. This has the trailer has a very Love Lies Bleeding feel to it.
Is that my wife over there talking, or is that Tyler?
No,
What if he took off the mask right now and it was more?
John, you do know I saw that movie.
He's against everybody. The Substance is a movie I'm looking forward to. Number 3 for me is Saturday Night. This is the SNL movie about night 1 of the production with a young Lorne Michaels fighting for his right to be able to have a show that matters and has a pulse on NBC. I love media-centric movies. I love sort of the documentary sort of feel I get from this. I love the young ensemble. I love the Chevy Chase casting. I love everything I've seen so far, which really does feel like to me Birdman meets the Bear, and they're trying to cook up this show for sure, and it's a theatrical mess where you're having to weave in and out of all of these different cliques. I can't wait for Saturday night, and I hope it delivers something that's substantial enough to be talked about at award season.
Can't wait for Saturday night every week.
Number 2 is a documentary that I cannot wait to see in theaters. It's only going to be showing 2 days in the month of September, and it is Superman, the Christopher Reeve story. I think Christopher Reeve is one of the single greatest superhero castings of all time. I think it could be in the contention for number 1. In our superhero casting draft, I took Christopher Reeve in the second round with my first pick of the second round, and I think that he was built for this role. And his story and his legacy and what he has meant to people outside of that role is something this is going to delve into, and I cannot wait to see it. It looks like an absolute tearjerker. If you have not seen the trailer, there was a lot of buzz coming out of CinemaCon this year for the trailer that they showed. It was this trailer, and I think the trailer alone got me emotional watching it. I cannot wait for Superman. I've already booked my tickets. I'm going to be there at the first showing I can possibly see, and I am really excited about this. That leads me to another DC project that should be no shock to anybody. That is number 1 at the top of my list, most anticipated of the year, has been there all year long. I've been so jealous of Johnny's been able to see all of his most anticipated for the most part. I finally get to see my most anticipated in October when Joker 2 hits the scene. They are downplaying the musical element of this. They're saying it's not really music. It's more them just sort of talking with music. I think there's going to be some big numbers in this. I think it's going to take some big swings. I love that they're going for the jugular here. I love Todd Phillips and what he's done with his directing career. I have a lot of faith in this. I think Lady Gaga is going to wow and potentially get a Best Actress nom. I'm super excited for Joker 2. Make sure you stay here with the Meltdown for all that Joker 2 coverage because it's going to be non-stop. All right, Tyler, what 4 movies are you looking most forward to seeing for the remainder of the year?
All right, for the number 4 spot, I've got a real pick and a Tyler pick. Honestly, the Tyler pick is more real, but so number 4 for me would have been Megalopolis until recently.
Boo.
I was really excited for this movie and what it could potentially be, but all of the reports coming out of there just make me more cautious than anything of it now. So the number 4 spot will now be taken by an anime film called Look Back. This is made by the creator of Chainsaw Man, and it is supposed to be almost like a Fabelmans kind of story, where it's like a biopic, but not really, and it will center around 2 kids learning to draw manga and how different they become, but how similar they still are.
Love it. Where are we going for number 3?
For number 3, we are going with Ridley Scott's Gladiator 2. I love the original. This looks great. I anticipate being there opening day. Number 2, movie that comes out next week, it is Beetlejuice. The original is one of my all-time favorite movies, and I can't wait to see if they can recapture that magic. I don't anticipate them being able to, but I still hope I'll have some fun.
The juice is loose.
Such a good line. Such a good line. And finally, number 1, it's a DC property. It's Joker, Folie à Deux. I loved the first Joker. I saw that opening night back when that came out. And even though this is a musical and that's a genre I hate, I'm so
looking forward to it.
I'm still looking forward to this one because I believe they can pull it off.
John, do you believe he's actually looking more forward to Joker 2 than he is Beetlejuice? In your heart of hearts?
No.
I think he's talking the talk. I'm not sure he's there yet emotionally. I'm being honest here.
Okay.
I think
Joker is the more.
I think you want Joker to be number
1. It's the one you want to be number 1. Yes, because it's the one that could get Oscar buzz because obviously the first one did. And it's the one that will do very well financially because the first one did.
And it's going to be crazy. I mean, it's going to be absolutely insane watching that movie, not knowing. do y'all know? Maybe you do, John, because you look ahead and stuff. But like all the twists and turns that's going to narratively take, I think it's going to be less than predictable for sure.
Yeah, every time I see the trailer, I think, oh, this looks so good.
It's got the ingredients.
Please don't mess up the musical part. So
Dude,
you're not wrong with.
I still think they're making a mistake
that,
by not actually promoting that, and people are going to go in and be like,
yeah, they're going to go in and be like that, which means cha-ching.
Yeah, and then they're going to walk out and you all talk about how word of mouth, and if they're like, that's a musical, then it could potentially hurt it.
Didn't affect Wonka.
That's
I mean,
totally different.
Okay,
movie than a dark crime thriller like Joker. I mean,
if I was expecting something
Also-
more similar to the original Willy Wonka,
Which was a musical.
and got Wonka, I don't think I'd be that disappointed
Yeah.
because both are musicals.
Look, you guys can roll your eyes all you want. They specifically did not market Wonka as a musical because they thought it would deter people. And sure enough, the strategy worked. And oh, by the way, it's the same company that's putting out Joker 2.
Yeah,
so
but
the
the
strategy
average
works
person-
here.
I think a better comparison would have been Mean Girls,
No.
because that one was they avoided calling that one a
they
musical
did that
the whole
with Mean
time.
Girls and it bombed.
Yeah.
So, like, the thing with Wonka is it is following a movie that did that already.
Look,
so it's
Wonka wears purple, Joker wears purple. It works out. Anyway, let's go ahead. Let's move. It's
Not
really
sure,
more of a
I'm
burgundy.
not sure I like your logic here, Tim.
he also did he wear a red suit in the first one?
It's more
So
burgundy.
it's not purple.
It's more.
Yeah.
Anyway, John, I know you can't stand the thought of going to see Joker 2, so what does make your list?
Nothing that has been said so far, technically.
Shocker.
Number 4 on the list is a movie called Conclave. I don't know if y'all seen the trailer for this. It is basically a political style thriller, but it's around the election of a new pope. The pope dies, and it stars Ray Fiennes, Stanley Tucci, John Lithgow. It looks like it's going to be really, really good. Looks like it's going to get a lot of Oscar buzz. Ray Fiennes is somebody who's one of the favorites to get nominated for Best Actor from it, and it looks really, really good. And it's basically the nomination of the pope and everything that goes into that, and kind of turns, like I said, into kind of a political thriller. Number 3, I'm very much looking forward to The Wild Robot. I think it'll be a really, really solid animated movie. I think it's the favorite, as of everything I've seen, to win Best Animated Film, potentially get nominated for Best Picture. I know Inside Out 2 is out there, but The Wild Robot looks really, really good. Number 2, the perfect pretentious art that I can't wait to see is indeed Megalopolis. I cannot wait to see this movie, and I cannot wait to not care what y'all think about it, because I'm going into it and I can't wait to see.
When was the
what
last
it
time
looks
you
like.
cared about what we thought about anything? I know that's not going to change anything.
I know. See Civil War. And then number 1, it is not my favorite play of all time. It is my third favorite play of all time. However, I do believe that of all things that they get right in this movie, it will be the music, unlike everything else that we've talked about.
I'm nervous about this one.
I cannot wait to see Wicked.
I'm nervous.
When it comes on the big screen. I think despite the acting and the people they have chosen for their roles, I honestly don't know how many better people they could have chosen for the various roles, except Fierro. I think there's a lot of people that could have chosen for that role. But I do believe the music will be very well done in that. And at the end of the day, that's the most important part that you have to get right.
I just think they should promote it as a musical. I don't know why they're not with Wicked 2. Anyway, so that is going to do it here. Now, I'm obviously a little jest there at the end. Everything I've
It's the
seen
only thing promoting itself as a musical this year.
going into the year, Wicked 2 was way high on my list of most anticipated.
Just Wicked.
Sorry, Wicked, which is another part 1, part 2 situation. Sorry.
Yes.
Wicked, though, I was super high on it going into the season of movies in 2024, and everything I've seen makes me go, I just don't know. I like Jeff Goldblum as the wizard, but other than that, I saw a trailer for it again this week. I'm just not there yet with it.
You're hardly going to find a better singer than Ariana Grande out there to also that is young and can fit the role. She has an interesting look nowadays compared to how she used to look, but I think strictly singing, the people they chose for this are going to be really, really good.
We shall see. So there we have it, our Meltdown 2024 movie midterms. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comment section as we have weighed in on not only what we've seen so far this year, but what we plan to see for the remainder of the year, as we're hoping it finishes strong. I'm worried we're going to get back into the conversation of theaters being potentially dead if we don't see some huge hits here. I think Moana 2 is going to be a huge hit. I think Mufasa is going to draw some people in. I think Joker 2 has the potential, Gladiator 2. There's some big movies that are being released for sure. But there's going to be a little bit more lull than we've experienced over the course of the summer where things really got recharged. John, to recharge your bankroll, you can visit our friends at MyBookie.
Go to mybookie.ag. Use that promo code next round. If you do it right now, they'll double your first deposit when you go in there. So go use promo code next round to get ready for football season. Go play in the sportsbook, play in the casino, play in the live casino, bet anything, anytime, anywhere.
This has been the Meltdown 2024 movie midterms presented by MyBookie, broadcasting live from the Culver studio.